Just taking the selfie there for our behind the scenes Instagram posts. But we're going to explore the nuanced implications of 10 bills introduced in Florida's 2024 legislative session, examining their impact on individual freedoms, societal norms, and the ever changing fabric of justice. Let's go, Joel.
Welcome to another episode of You Can't Make This Shit Up. This is David. I am Joel. We're your host. This is the Jay in Washington Network. And oh my God, that's a lot to unpack. Let's see. There are going to be 10 bills that we're going to discuss today, and I'm probably off camera.
Well, or 10 areas of legislation.
10 areas of legislation.
Mm-hmm.
And the first one is going to be homeowners insurance, which has been a special session and everything else. I don't think anybody has a solution except for David and I. We've already said, let's just rip their roofs off and start all over. Is that what we said?
That's it.
And then we can start insurance so companies can all come in here with fresh, brand new roofs. And then, David, this is a topic that we're never going to solve.
It's never going to be solved because there is no will by the legislature to come together, Democrats and Republicans, and have a solution to give relief to homeowners.
Yeah, well, it takes two shots to even deal with shingles. I'm sorry, that's the wrong thing. No, it is. You're right. And I can be humorous on this because we have talked about this for the last 3 years as we've seen the deterioration of the insurance industry.
Right. We personally know individuals who have lost their insurance, who are self-insuring their homes, and individuals who are being priced out of their homes because their insurance has increased astronomically and it's become unaffordable.
Well, it's not about whether you're going to, it's not about if I'm going to be canceled. It's when am I going to be canceled, right? That's the new problem. And it's just, what do you do if you're prepared for it or not? If you haven't been paying attention, it's a shocker to you. But if it's, been paying attention, it's coming and maybe you have a backup plan. But there is no plan other than the state of Florida taking over our insurance, covering our insurance altogether at this point, because we have neglected this topic and paid too much attention, both parties, on things that are not important. So now we have this important issue.
Right.
So next on the agenda is going to be what, David?
Auto insurance.
Let's
just like property insurance.
Let's just cancel it all. Let's just drive uninsured and make it all on the responsibility of the driver.
Scary because we already know there's a lot of people driving uninsured. You see,
we have the highest?
You hear about people fleeing car accidents because they're either without a license,
hit and run in the state,
or don't have insurance.
Hit and run in the state of Florida. Whether it's a vehicle hit and run, whether it's a pedestrian, a bicyclist, is out of is the highest. I think we have the highest state in pedestrian. Orlando is one of the top 3 in the state because people are fleeing because they don't have insurance and don't know what to do.
And Florida is a no-fault insurance state,
right?
So you get into an accident, it may have been your fault, but in Florida, it's no one's fault. And
it's Morgan and Morgan's fault.
Because I was just about to mention it's the personal injury lawyers that are being blamed for high insurance rates when we know that tort reform is not the issue.
Well, the problem here, David, is perception. If Dan Newland hadn't, I'm going to use him for example, didn't make it like a lottery, then insurance companies could actually deal inside a courtroom and get good settlements for people, instead of it looking like, okay, they're just out ambulance chasing. Because listen, there are cases that need millions of dollars, but we don't need billboards trying to make it look like the lottery. And I'm sorry, I think the bar Association fails in this, because they should go after these attorneys and say, come on, let's make this not a lottery. Let's make this an
Mhm.
important issue where people don't just reach out to lawyers for money, they reach out for the health and get the extra money that's necessary. This money goes into is not like pocket money. You're talking a lot of these millions of dollars settlements are going into, you have to redo your entire house because you're handicapped and you got to get in and out of a house, that you need an elevator or you need lifts and you need this and you need transportation, and it's a lot. It's not a lottery, and that's what should be sold as why insurance is important.
Right.
It's not important because how much money you make. It's important because it's life-saving, life-changing accident. You need that money to change your lifestyle. Okay, I'm off my tangent. So let me move this. I should have this up here, but
So healthcare is another area of legislative action that this particular session is addressing. Again, increasing Medicaid um, or Medicare to more residents is on the table, which seems to
staying hot,
probably be on
being
dead on
hostage,
arrival.
being hostage to the federal government. That's not going to get passed.
Hmm. There's legislation to increase or attract more medical professionals to Florida. We are one of the fastest growing states in the union and one of the oldest states in the union as far as the median age or average age. Well, not average age, but the median age of residents.
Isn't that why healthcare uh, insurance companies are like mostly in Jacksonville? Like one of the reasons that
Headquartered?
headquartered in
Sure.
Jacksonville, because old people live in Florida and they need insurance, and that's how it started. Whether they're, I mean, that's the only insurance that's in the state that's actually flourishing. I mean,
Right.
everything else is running away.
Not a month passes that another new clinic or hospital is being built, here in Central Florida.
So Chewy's on Alafaya is now going to be a healthcare center. They tore it. They just built it. Now they've torn it down and they're building a health center. There's a new health center being built on the corner of. There's a new one being built on the corner of Redbug, where Redbug turns into Mitchell Hammock. They put a whole brand new hospital in Oviedo. Listen, the healthcare industry is building these standalone clinics now.
Um, Advent Health, if I remember correctly, purchased the land where Holy Land,
Yep, the Holy Land Experience
the Holy Land
is now
Experience,
owned by Advent Health.
and they're building a facility there,
Yep,
right off of I-4 and Conway,
right.
if I remember
And if you're
correctly.
not familiar with Advent Health is headquartered out of Texas. Advent Health purchased Florida Hospital, which was also a Christian based religious hospital. So
Mhm. Another area of discussion in this session is the use of a substance called kratom, Kratom.
yeah, I left mine at home today. I would like show.
Well, I've got samples of kratom right there on the stove that I cooked up myself.
That's
I made Danielle look.
you know, we we are totally joking. No,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I had never heard of kratom. Uh, kratom isn't it? Kratom.
Kratom, yeah, it's a substance
It's
derived from the dried leaves of a tropical Southeast Asian tree that in recent years has become popular in part because of its purported opiate like effects. Hundreds of people have died in the state from kratom related overdoses in the past decade.
well, opium is a huge problem. It's in the court system right now. Um, these these drug companies that pushed the opioids onto the public, and especially through the VA system. got people hooked and knew they were going to get people hooked, and they're now dealing with it. It's just like the tobacco industry, but it's not. It's too late, right? It's too late. The problem exists, and we have to be dealing with the issue of rehabilitation. We need to be trying to transition people off of these drugs, and they're going to find substitutes. So hopefully, whatever this new substance is, I'll learn more about it now that's on the legislative agenda.
Right.
Um,
Allegedly, it's available at like gas stations or something like that. But it seems like it's something that has been able to kind of go under the radar.
well, that's exactly how everything starts, right? You find something new that you introduce it. Do you think people in Europe were smoking before before the Americas were found?
Of course.
No, they weren't. They weren't smoking because they didn't know what tobacco truly
But
was.
weren't there other things that?
No, they weren't smoking. It wasn't until we found out that you could actually smoke this stuff. The Indians were smoking it, and that's how it ended up being one of
Oh,
Europeans'
voila.
biggest imports. It's like
Okay.
Europeans were not smart enough to be smoking. They were too busy doing other drugs, and
Good point.
getting the herpes and the things that
S-
people died of were venereal diseases and stuff like that because they were poor, and poor people, what do they
Right.
do?
So next
That's a true statement.
area
You can
of
my all the interns just
discussion in
looked.
the legislative session is the prison system in crisis. Allegedly, Florida's prison system
We don't
is in
have enough prisons.
distress and in need of billions of dollars in renovations.
No, we don't have enough prisons. We need to build new ones. That's all. That's no. I'm joking, guys.
Mercy.
Listen, the prison system has been broken. The prison system has been overwhelmed for a long time. We need to. I've always said we need to really get into the laws that we create and start really looking at eliminating mandatory sentences. We need to start you know taking some of the burden off of the legal system by making streamlining some of these laws, uh, and then really pushing to the max on law on real hardcore crime. So some of the petty stuff is just money makers, like uh, traffic courts and are overwhelmed, and if we didn't have so many different rules and regulations, how about taking one moment to look at all the legislation we have and say, like, in today's society, how important is that to charge, you know, somebody with a small amount of drugs to be going to jail longer than somebody who's, run somebody over and killed them? Like that to me is, you know,
So, um, justice reform or
criminal reform is huge.
criminal
I think that's
reform.
one of the things that Donald Trump did right when he started, going into to the system and saying, you know what, these mandatories are out of control. Some of these people are in jail for things that like almost life sentences for things that shouldn't be life sentences. I mean,
Right.
but yeah, if we would have a real, true look at the reform, our prisons wouldn't be in such bad repair. We need to look at the what private uh, government practices we have out there, because some of Democrats you really think that that's a moneymaker. I know that
To some extent,
state
it
of state of
is.
Massachusetts dealt with it by outsourcing their prisons by sending people to Texas. I think that was destroyed family life. So there's all kinds of
Wow.
things. There's all kinds of things that happen in the legal system we don't know of if we
Right.
don't have people in the system themselves. But hey, somebody's got to deal with it, and maybe we should have some people really look at it.
Right. Senate Republican leaders want to ease public school regulations and put them on a level playing field with private schools. So I just saw in my news feed that the Florida Senate passed some legislation to deregulate the public school system. So what this is saying is that they want to lower the standards of education here in Florida because, and I base this on the very famous, infamous, however you want to say it, Orlando Sidnell expose on private schooling, charter schools, things like that, that they did a couple of years ago, and showing how the system is unbalanced, and that there are lower standards to these charter schools and public and private schools and so forth and so on compared to what's required in the public school system.
Public school system, dealing with the public school system is you'd have to eliminate the federal regulations, because the federal regulations are what really.
Like which one?
Okay, so if a teacher is teaching a disabled child, a child with disabilities, spends more time doing paperwork for the federal government and for the parent that the parent doesn't even show up for, because the child is usually neglected by the parent because they're using the school systems as a crutch. So I can't tell you how many hours my mother, as a
Is that
as a teacher, would spend doing federal mandated paperwork.
But that was
in
in
it,
Massachusetts, right?
that's a federal, it's federal rules. They have to
Here in
create
Florida,
this.
they're doing the.
They are
You're talking
doing
about
the same thing.
the IEP,
IEPs, they're doing
the
IEP,
individual education plan.
right? They're doing IEPs.
It's a,
But listen, it goes
it's,
beyond the
it's an
IEP.
education plan.
It's an individual education plan where they try to make sure that the child is in the classrooms, and they have to coordinate with the teachers. They have to. This is a lot more than just an IEP. The paperwork involved in it takes the teacher out of teaching and puts them as an administrator. There should be administrator.
I don't think so.
There should be teacher. There should be
No.
administrator. Listen,
Joel,
federal
I
government.
used to collaborate on IEPs when I worked in the public sector in Illinois. I used to help craft them.
Okay, so
And
great.
there were other professionals
So
who
how about
would help craft the
so how about
IEP.
so how
And the
about
teacher was, would give their, impressions of the students and so forth and so on, and help collaborate on it. But it was a collaborative effort. At least in Illinois, it wasn't the expectation that the teacher would sit there and
who
and
creates
do
it?
all this.
And that's the case, right? That's like saying, okay, this is the expectation, but what is the end result? The teacher will end up trying to get everything accomplished so they don't lose their job.
But aren't there
And
paraprofessionals who are also involved in the implementation of an IEP?
and
If you
how
have
many
if you have an IEP,
right,
it's a
and
requirement for having other professionals involved.
correct. But how much involvement are they doing? Look, there's so many pieces to the puzzle. That is it being completed? Is it got to be completed in a timely manner? All these
Yes.
different things. Correct. But the biggest problem I have is you do all that work for an individual education plan, and guess what? The parent doesn't show up. And the whole reason you have it is because the parent is supposed to be in the
I don't
input
think that's in
process.
all cases. I,
The majority of cases.
as a representative of the state of Illinois, when we had guardianship of a child, it was my responsibility to show up on behalf of the guardian's office and
Because the government
report that information to the court and to the attorneys representing the state and the parents.
Okay, but the
Now,
parent,
if the parents were involved, which on occasion they were involved, they would be there, despite the fact not having guardianship of their kid.
I just took
Just
the
my
I
experience.
just took the IP for an example of the amount of hours. It can take you 40 hours. It could take you 40 hours, a week to work, and takes you 40 hours to put
I
together
know.
an
I've been
IEP.
there. I've been there.
And if
It's
you have to,
it's
if you're a
hard.
teacher and you're taking care of 10 children, you have 10, 40-hour work week jobs to do to get that out. You get that to the, how many
It's
people are
not just the
involved.
teacher who puts together the IEP.
I'm talking about federal regulations need to be removed. States need to start dealing with this. We need to really revamp get the federal government
There
out
should
of
be a
our.
national standard.
No, there shouldn't be a national
There should be a
standard.
national standard, so that there is at least a minimum that states need to meet
So you need a
in
socialist.
educating.
You need a socialist program to make sure that everybody's getting the same exact education when everybody learns differently.
I said a minimum.
Everybody learns
There should be
differently.
a
So
standard.
you're gonna have a standard for 3 different types of learning styles.
There should be a minimum. You should be able to rewrite and do some basic.
So your minimum standard. So your minimum standard for somebody who,
Like,
who is a
At fifth
audible.
grade, you should be
If
able
you
to
have
read at a fifth grade level. At eighth grade, you should be able to, do math at a certain level. When you graduate from college, you should be not college from high school. You should be able to at least balance a checkbook
why is a newspaper written at a sixth grade reading level?
because that's where most Americans are,
Because you
and
said
that's the
they
truth.
because they didn't have a standard. You used to have every single kid in the same classroom, and they
Not
would.
everyone's going to succeed.
I'm
There
saying
are going to be some of us who are going to fall through the cracks.
correct because you've got three different learning styles. So education is a very interesting place where you can't just pigeonhole and say one size fits all.
No, no one's saying that. I'm
You
just
just
saying
did.
there should be a set standard. If you don't meet that standard, you just don't meet that standard. Not all of us are meant to, meant to have, 141,
David, everybody wins.
IQs or
You're in the
or
party.
succeed in life.
You're in the party of everybody wins. How can you say that? You're just alienated half your party right now.
Get used to
You're
it,
gonna say,
and
"Ooh,"
they should get
and then
used
you
to it.
should, say this. It should be testing too to make sure that people get through. The school.
Mhm. All right. Next area, artificial intelligence. Why they want to tackle artificial intelligence is beyond me. I understand
because they can't touch your intelligence, so they
exactly.
need to go after something else.
I understand if for particularly for us, if we're going to use AI generated images or text or video, audio in a campaign propaganda piece, then we should, disclose that AI was instrumental in creating this particular piece.
Well,
But however, if especially it makes certain statements that questions that puts in questions facts about a particular candidate or a particular issue.
I think anytime you use AI, it's just like using it's just like using somebody else's texts.
AI
I think that
put together these show notes.
well, and you could tell 'cause so listen, if you write me an email and you ask me how well I'm doing, I'll say, okay, which AI did you use to write this email? Because that's typically been a foregone conclusion that we've eliminated. I hope this finds you well, but
Mhm.
there's not an AI program that doesn't have that first line. If you write me a poem and it has certain words in it, I will automatically know that you used AI because there are words that intertwined. If you use the word intertwined in a
Right.
poem, I guarantee you it's never been used prior to the AI
Right.
world.
We should leave most of these AI issues, in my opinion, to at a federal level and let the feds come up with laws that guide the use of AI and the
But we're already
implementation of
having.
AI.
But here's the thing, David. We're already having trouble now with the fact that plagiarism is, every sentence has probably been used somewhere along the line, but now we have
Mhm.
plagiarism. uh, we have these programs that look for plagiarism, and all of a sudden we're charging professors and presidents of universities with plagiarism, uh, because they didn't use the proper um,
Mhm.
AP, the AP style, or they didn't give credit to the proper person. So I think one thing is when you're using AI, a good standard would be to give credit to the AI. If you're using Chat GTP,
Acknowledge,
just let people know that
acknowledge that you used it.
look, we're
Yeah.
not, like you said, you're not afraid to say that you used it in the show notes, but
No.
we're not using verbatim the AI that produces it either.
Right.
We're looking at it going, hey, guess what, David? I did this and this is totally wrong because at least we know our history and we're going to check our facts.
Exactly. Another area that our legislators are going to address are a change in child labor laws. And lawmakers are looking to allow some teenagers to work longer hours on school days and in hazardous professions, resembling a push in several other states that will roll back child labor
Yeah, I
protections.
want my roof replaced by 12, 16-year olds instead of 4 four Mexicans, and this is crazy. No, I'm saying that in a very sarcastic way. Look, I want them to be safe, right? I want our children to be safe. I want our workers to be safe. I believe that there is a role for young people in these professions. I think that young people have been locked out of the job industry corporately because it's just too risky to take them on.
Hmm.
So I think this is a good place to look because we have eliminated too much of the um, schools that treat the trade schools. If we still had trade schools where these young people could work very safely in an environment to learn electricity, to learn plumbing, to learn construction in those ways, we wouldn't have this legislation. We would have
Right.
we would have internship. We would have no. I'm not. I'm using the word intern. It's not
Right.
intern.
Given the fact that there's a supermajority of Republicans in the legislature and the powerful lobbyist groups behind this legislation, it'll likely will pass. I'm just hoping that the minority party has the ability to input some type of protections to ward against exploitation and occupational hazards to young people who do enter the workforce due to the ability of this particular legislation or laws that are being proposed. It's going to happen.
I don't think the Democrats are the ones that necessarily are the savior to legislation with safeguards. I think parenting. I think parenting is a lost cause right now, and if our legislature has to find ways to employ more young people by removing legislation restrictions. Some of these restrictions are over the top, anyways.
Right.
A parent knows how long their kid needs to study. A parent
Right.
knows what types
Do
of
they?
jobs.
Do they?
Uh,
If they haven't, when they
listen,
were when they were in school.
listen. I had it when we were younger. We had jobs at 16, and we had opportunity to find jobs at 16. The limitation on jobs at a young age nowadays is it's overwhelming.
Right. And of course, there are two issues that are being addressed in the legislature that we have kind of discussed ad nauseum: guns and abortion.
No, they're not going to tackle guns and abortion, are they?
No, yes, they are. Are
No,
we?
no, they're not going. Okay, I don't understand why. Why would they would want to deal with
Ron,
guns and
Ron
legislation?
DeSantis wants to make it able to purchase a gun, you know, day of, no waiting period or anything like that.
Oh, cool. So let's see. We
Why
have
not?
so David and I are going to invest in uh, a handgun dispenser. It's going to be a vending machine. You can find it at any one of your 7-Eleven stores, Wawa. You just walk in and you put in you put in your $50 and you get 10 rounds. You put in $150, you can get a 22. If you put in $350, we'll give you a 45. Um, we'll even make sure that we have our we'll even make sure that we have our 3D printers printing them so that they can get through security.
DM us, contact us through our socials, and so that we can discuss our business plan with you. And we are looking for investors, angel investors, all type of investors in this business venture. That's where we're heading. You all know how I feel about guns. Everyone should have one. There should be no limitations. I know that's not the typical liberal view, but hey, that's the direction we're going in. This is the Wild Wild West all over again. Joel,
Okay, just make sure that the sticker. Just make sure that we have the federal sticker on the
right?
on the machine.
But for our gun enthusiasts, John, Joel, check this out. What I just learned. You know how there's these gun buyback programs that the law enforcement have. I just realized the legal definition of a gun is just the a certain part of the gun, not the whole gun. And so you could take the stock off. Is that what it's called? Stock and another piece, but there's a central piece that's considered a gun, and that piece can be
The barrel.
dist- is it the barrel? I can't remember, but
So if you just bring the barrel in, you should probably be good because that's the only thing that's actually going to allow the the dangerous portion, just because the bullet has to be released
right,
through the barrel, the chamber. So
eh,
I would assume the chamber is the only part of the gun that's actually,
right, and that's considered the
or the
firearm.
fire, or the firing pin,
Mhm.
the firing mechanism doesn't really, it can be changed out. So
So when people surrender their guns, or guns are turned in for a crime and they're destroyed or whatever,
make sure you
that
look at David's definition of the gun, so you only have to bring in whatever it is. Because
this is the
if it's
right,
the barrel, I'm going to give you every barrel
right.
I can, because I can craft one of those in my sleep.
And that's what I'm getting at. That there are kits available that you can buy. The two pieces that are not considered part of the firearm are available, and then you could get the other piece on the aftermarket somewhere else, and then create a whole new weapon
Listen, David,
or a whole new firearm.
we use the actual right term, weapon, like a firearm, gun.
Right? It's just
The tool is a weapon. So,
right.
like in the army, we would say, well, I won't go there, but we would definition of a weapon and a gun were two different things.
Hmm.
You
Right.
use your gun with relationships. You use your weapon for
Right.
actual fighting.
There, and and when people are thinking, when it's promoted that okay, these guns are off the streets, technically they're really not off the streets when you can purchase these kits and recreate a gun or a firearm or a weapon, and they're right back on the streets.
So if you're watching our show, and you are commenting or something like that, I'm going to put a question out there for you to see if you're paying attention. How many serial numbers are on a gun?
Hmm.
And if there aren't multiple serial numbers, where is the serial number printed? Because that would be the only piece that would need to be turned in, because it's the only identifiable
Hmm.
piece to
Right.
your weapon. So in the comments, comment,
Yeah.
subscribe, and look, answer our trivia question for the day and see if we
Right.
can figure that one out.
And I will reference the New York Times podcast post in regards to what I learned about um, these buyback programs and whatever. But I found it very interesting that a firearm legally is just a certain portion of the gun
Mhm.
and not necessarily the whole thing.
Well, we could have a whole conversation on this, because like we're talking about how do we, the government started going after ammunition because we found out that the stockpiles of ammunition, and they weren't regulated, and that people have tons of ammunition purchased. But like that wouldn't have caught my family necessarily in our sportsmanship, because we never purchased a full bullet. Like we reloaded all of our bullets. If we purchased bullets at all, it was we reused that case over and over again until it couldn't be used again. We'd refurbish them. My dad's a true conservative. We did not spend money on anything. We did not spend money outside of anything that couldn't be, if it could be redone, it was redone. So thank you very much for joining us on this show. I am excited to talk about these legislative decisions, and thank you, David. This great topic.
Thank you much. Please like, share, comment. We love to hear your comments. We are your political innovators here at JN Washington. Thank you, John DeMaria of 7th Legion Multimedia. Thank you, everyone, for being a part of our community. Remember, we want to hear what you have to say. Bring your facts, not your feelings.